Hello, this is Steven Allen. Yes, we are back with yet another Batman 66 episode review, and today we'll be reviewing the very first episode of Season 3. So without further ado, let's hop into the review. But first, let's get into a bit of backstory. So right about this time, we are still in the later half of 1967. Times have changed. Also, Season 2 had pretty much ended. And we had and basically by this point things have severely affected when going into Season 3. First off, the budget was incredibly slashed, and this will be prevalent in the set designs, and as a result, this restricted the creators' creative freedom in creating very interesting stories. Also by this point, the ratings had severely dipped, and as a result, in order to save the series, it was the classic case of introducing yet a new character. As a result, we were introduced to the character of Batgirl. Now, for those who are unaware, Batgirl was actually created because of this show. I mean, technically there was Batgirl in the comics during the Golden Age, but that wasn't the Barbara Gordon interpretation. Because of the series wanting to create her, the creators of the show went to DC Comics and asked them to essentially create this version of Batgirl to be put in their comics so that way they could do it on their show. So in many ways, the show once again helped create yet another character, the character of Barbara Gordon's Batgirl. And with that, we get straight into the season. So let's quickly get into the episode. We begin the episode with Batman and Robin arriving at the Batcave, signaling they just apprehended the Catwoman, and are getting prepared to go to the opera tonight, where they will be with Commissioner Gordon, Chief O'Hara, and Barbara Gordon, who is to be Bruce's kind of date. Just as that's happening, we then go to the Little Gotham Library, which will be a common place we'll see throughout Season 3, where Gordon is calling up Barbara Gordon about the night at the opera, and hoping she will definitely still be attending, which she agrees. Just as she's hopping off work, she pops into the elevator, where she is attacked by the Penguin and her men, who essentially kidnap her. We then begin the opening credits with some slight tweaks to Batgirl now playing a role in the opening compared to the usual Batman and Robin. We then get back to where we left off with Gordon and Chief O'Hara arriving at the apartment that Barbara is staying at. However, they notice that something's off, and as a result they enter the apartment and noticing that she has yet to come home. We then find out that the Penguin has kidnapped Barbara Gordon in the apartment across from Barbara's, and clearly he's excited for his big plan. Just as that's happening, Bruce Wayne and Dick arrive, but they know that Barbara's not here. Then suddenly the phone rings, and when they go to pick up, they realize it's the Penguin, who they find out that he has kidnapped Barbara, and Bruce offers to pay any ransom if he promises she will not be harmed, but he says, "No, I have a bigger plan. You'll find out when you read the Gotham City Times." Just as Bruce goes to read it, he is shocked with what he finds. That the Times, that apparently Penguin plans to marry Barbara Gordon in hopes to become Commissioner Gordon's son-in-law and gain immediate immunity from prosecution, which is a pretty ambitious, but I can see several flaws being poked in it, but it makes a lot of sense. Realizing that Gordon knows there's only one man that can help him and has to break off the opera, and Bruce and Dick leave their way to go back to Wayne Manor and say, if they need any help, give us a call. Now, for one thing I've always had to point out, every time Gordon had to call up Batman and Robin, it was usually for a big supervillain, but I never understood a reason why, considering that the police department could always handle it. But with this, for him personally, at stake, it makes a whole lot of sense for him to call a man that he trusts, and it makes perfect sense that he called Batman when his own flesh and blood is at risk. We then go back to the Penguin and Barbara, who is still... And just as soon as Barbara realizes what Penguin wants him to do, at first she refuses, but then he threatens to harm Police Commissioner Gordon if he doesn't obey. And as a result, she agrees to marry him. With that, the Penguin then orders his men to go and quickly snatch up a minister in order to make the ceremony legal. We then cut to the Batcave where Batman and Robin are there and have arrived to enter the Batphone quickly. And immediately get on the case, but Robin wonders where Alfred is, and Alfred is at a church supper. We then cut to Alfred with the minister planning their church supper, which will be enough funds to have underprivileged children, have a chance to go camping and have sort of fun. Just as that's happening, the Penguin's men walk in at gunpoint and ask for the minister. Alfred takes the rap saying he's the minister in order to avoid the minister being harmed, and when he gets the chance, he activates a special device on his belt to signify to Batman and Robin about him being kidnapped. It doesn't take long for Batman to realize that the possible connection and then trace the location to the Penguin's possible hideout. Just as we see Alfred at Penguin's hideout being tossed into the same room Barbara's in, Barbara is secretly sneaking out the window and asks him to keep his secret. He's confused, just as we all are, and of course she manages to make her way to her apartment where she's getting dressed into a different type of costume. And the narrator says, "What is Barbara Gordon's secret?" Just as we see that, we see the Penguin and his men getting ready for the wedding. Just as Batman and Robin arrive, and just when a bat fight's about to break out, another partner is added to the fray. The introduction to one of the most iconic characters probably in the entire Batman mythos, Batgirl. And I like how everyone's reacting like they've never heard of Batgirl. The Penguin doesn't know, Batman and Robin doesn't know, Alfred is confused, and a bat fight breaks out. It's okay, but it's certainly fun. Also gotta admit, this is very groundbreaking to see an actual woman actually participate in actual fist fight. Granted, she mostly does kicks, jumps, and basically throws items. It's still definitely there of her being on the same partner level as Batman and Robin. They end up subduing the Penguin and his goons, and when Batman and Robin quickly go to open the door, they realize they could find it easier if they could ask Batgirl for a hairpin. But when they turn around, she's done the classic Batman disappearing act, which is usually something Batman always did. Just as they're beginning to open the door, Penguin suddenly gets up and sprays his iconic Penguin gas in the room, knocking out Batman and Robin. He then orders his men to essentially take Batman, Robin, Alfred, who he still thinks is a minister, and of course Barbara Gordon. When Barbara left, she left a dummy version of herself, and the goons mistakenly take that, not knowing that believing that this dummy is a real person when actually it's not. As a result, they are taking all the hostages away on their van to go to a different hideout. As Batgirl seeing this, she goes back to her apartment and rides her famous Batgirl cycle and chases them to the Penguin's new hideout. When we get there, it's clear how much the budget was slashed, as this hideout design is completely noticeably done very terribly, as it's mostly black. There's not much, well, I guess you could say, color or character, but it's done rather blandly. But when you understand the budget slash, you can kind of forgive it. But like I said, it's kind of. We see Batman and Robin inside a giant tea bag about to be dipped into some kind of acid. And just as the Penguin is about to unwrap Barbara Gordon, the Batgirl suddenly appears and starts distracting the Penguin's men, and Alfred has a one-on-one fight with the Penguin. And I'm laughing as my head off because it's just so cool to see him do that. He manages to get Batman and Robin out of their predicament, and as soon as they get out, they prepare to fight help Batgirl by fighting the Penguin and his men. Batgirl then takes the opportunity to go to Alfred, as it was revealed that, of course, Alfred is not really a minister, but Bruce Wayne's butler. And basically, we have this conversation with why Alfred did what he did, and asks him to keep her identity a secret. And as a result, he agrees to. So Alfred's getting a lot of character development here, as he has to not keep the secret of Batman and Robin, but also helps Barbara Gordon in her fighting career as Batgirl. She then takes her cue to quickly get changed and switch places with the dummy, and Batman and Robin subdue the Penguin's men. Just as they then go to free Barbara, and basically, Batgirl has done her disappearing act. And everyone just wants to know, who's this Batgirl? and where's she gone? But however, Batman knows that they're going to be seeing more of her. We then end the episode with Dick getting his driver's license and gets his own personal car, and this cuts to Gordon and Chief O'Hara getting a check from millionaire Bruce Wayne for their police pension fund. Just as he's about to call and thank him for the generous donation, they get a strange call. The Riddler is back. And as a result, that's our cliffhanger, with the Riddler returning for next week's episode. Okay, I like how we get new things with characters. First off, we get the Batman, Robin, and Bruce Wayne, Dick Grayson, being confused of, who's this Batgirl? Where did she come from? They are confounded. And hell, this is mostly the introduction to Batgirl, with Barbara Gordon, Batgirl, portrayed by Yvonne Craig in the series. Overall, fantastic. Overall, I really like her character here. And we don't really know why she's gotten involved, really, which is kind of a mystery with the season as to why she fights for what she does. But then again, it's not really quite explicit to why Batman and Robin do what they do, so I can forgive it. I also like how the character development is given to Gordon and Alfred. Alfred has to play more of a role in keeping another secret identity and help another crime fighter in her career, and Gordon being now dragged into this, though he doesn't know about Barbara being Batgirl and all that. It's good that these two are given unique character development for this episode. And of course, we can't keep going without talking about our villain. Burgess Meredith back as the Penguin, to start off the season with arguably a dip in not just in quality, but also maybe for writing, possibly for the season. It made sense to start off the series with an established villain rather than a new one making his appearance, and as a result, it's really fun to have Burgess Meredith in the role as the Penguin back again. I like his caper here. He wants to gain immunity from prosecution, and he wants to essentially force Barbara Gordon to be his wife. A very unique and different caper, but it makes sense for Penguin, who views himself as an aristocratic criminal and a person of stature, who he feels someone should be honored that they would even propose marriage. And I really like that. Now, you can poke flaws in the plot. I won't deny that, whether the marriage would actually work or immunity would actually work. But it kind of will in Penguin's favor. And as a result, I really don't mind that idea of a caper for him, and it makes sense. And of course, we have the Riddler, having a very brief appearance at the end of the episode. And to everyone's hurrah, it is Frank Gorshin. Now, we've missed him we haven't seen him since the movie, and he was completely absent for Season 2, so I'm happy that he is, of course, being brought for this episode. I can't wait to see where we go. Enter Batgirl, exit Penguin, for me, first off, it had to establish that something's gonna be different this time around. Instead of a two-parter, we get in a one-episode story with our cliffhanger being who our next week's villain is, which will make audiences immediately come back for the next adventure. I like how it's done, and it also introduces new characters and everyone's new dynamic through the series. I really like this episode. It's fun, not breaking grounds in top 10 material, but it is a fun episode, and it sets the season up well. That's what all premiere episodes for a season need to do. They need to set up the story, set up the new character development, and overall, just what we're expecting. Now, I think when going into this, maybe the idea of having a one-episode story may turn people off as they prefer the two-parter, but I'll be honest, when Season 2, I was getting pretty bored of the two-parter. I felt that we're getting too formulaic, so this is a refreshing change of pace, and especially since in next week's episode, they will have another fan-favorite villain finally making his return. Like I said, also, you see, usually around in the first two seasons, it was aired twice a week on Wednesdays and Thursdays. Now it's a one-episode week format. So, I'm really excited to see where we go with this. And there we have it. That was Enter Batgirl, Exit Penguin. Join us next time with Batman and Robin. We're going up against the Riddler, who is making his return. So until next time, tune into the same Steven hour, the same Steven channel. Ladies and gentlemen, so long for now.